The wind swept dust across the small frontier town as Cole Matson rode in from the northern ridge. He came only for feed and fence wire, nothing more. He was a man who kept to himself, a man folks called the Lonely Rancher, not out of spite but truth. Ever since his wife passed 3 winters ago, Cole spoke less, worked more, and lived with the quiet that followed him everywhere. But that quiet shattered the moment he heard raised voices at the center of town. A crowd had gathered by the saloon, not unusual on payday, yet something felt off. Men were not laughing or cheering. They were whispering, uneasy, shifting from boot to boot. Cole slowed his horse and edged closer. Then he saw her. A young girl, maybe 17, standing on a makeshift wooden crate. Her clothes were thin, her hair tangled, her cheeks streaked with dirt. She kept her eyes down and her hands clasped tight against her chest. She did not speak. She did not look at anyone. She stood there like someone trying to disappear. Beside her swayed a man with whiskey on his breath and anger in his eyes. Carl Denver, the town drunk. Someone Cole knew too well. A man who gambled and drank until there was nothing left to waste, except now his own daughter. The sheriff stepped forward, telling Carl this had gone far enough, but Carl waved him off, claiming it was legal because she was almost grown and he needed the money. The crowd murmured with disgust, but no one stepped in. No one wanted trouble with a drunk and desperate man. Cole felt something twist in his chest, something he had not felt in years. A pull, a warning, a memory of a promise he once made to defend the helpless no matter the cost. He had failed to keep that promise once. He would not fail again. He leaned down from his horse and asked quietly, "What is happening?" A ranch hand beside him whispered, "Carl says the girl is deaf and useless, so he is selling her off to anyone with dollars left in their pocket. Sheriff said he cannot stop it unless someone claims guardianship." Cole felt heat rise in his jaw. Deaf or not, she was still a human being. Still a child. Still someone who deserved better than being put on a crate like livestock. Carl shouted another bid demand, but the crowd had gone silent. No one wanted to be part of something so shameful. Then Cole spoke. $10. Every head turned. Carl blinked, confused, then grinned, greedy and wild. Sold. Cole dismounted, walked to the crate and gently helped the girl down. She did not flinch, but she did not trust him either. Her eyes remained fixed on the ground as though fearing even air might strike her. She did not know it yet, but her life had just changed. What Cole did not know was that she had heard every word spoken that day. She only pretended not to. The storm eased by morning, leaving the ranch wrapped in a quiet that felt almost sacred. Ethan stepped out onto the porch, boots sinking into the damp earth. For the first time in a long while, he wasn't alone. Inside his small cabin, the girl slept curled on the cot he'd given her, hands tucked beneath her cheek, hair fanned across the pillow like spilled ink. He still didn't know her name. When he'd found her the night before, shivering, half-conscious, and bought like livestock by a drunk man desperate for whiskey, Ethan acted on instinct. He had seen fear in horses and in wounded animals, but the fear he saw in her eyes had been something else entirely, human, raw, and pleading without sound. Now, in the gentle morning light, he listened. No movement, no crying, no footsteps, just silence. He stepped back inside. She was awake. Sitting up, knees drawn close, she watched him with those wide, alert eyes, gray, like river stones. She didn't flinch, but she didn't soften either. Her shoulders were tense, her breathing held as if she feared he might suddenly turn into another version of the man who had sold her. Ethan kept his voice low. "I ain't here to hurt you," he said. "You can stay until we figure things out." No response. He set a tin cup of warm broth on the small table and stepped away. She hesitated before reaching for it, moving carefully, as though expecting punishment for even that small action. Only when she began to eat did Ethan notice something else, how her head turned sharply at small vibrations, not sounds. How she watched his hands instead of his face when he spoke. How she had not said a single word. He realized the truth slowly. She wasn't mute. She couldn't hear. Ethan sat on the edge of the table and tapped the wood twice. Her eyes snapped up instantly, following the motion. When he tapped again, softer, she reacted the same. But when he spoke aloud, her expression didn't change at all. She was deaf, and the world had never learned to meet her halfway. The pieces fell into place then. Why her father sold her. Why she looked so afraid of misunderstanding anything. Why she stayed silent, waiting to see what he wanted from her. Ethan crouched in front of her, slow and careful, then pressed a hand gently to his chest. "Ethan," he said. She studied his lips. Confusion flickered in her eyes. So he repeated the gesture, tapping his chest again. "Ethan." Something softened in her face. She touched her own chest, paused, looked down. Then, with trembling fingers, she traced 3 gentle shapes in the air, her version of a name. It was delicate, almost a whisper made of motion. Ethan smiled. "All right," he murmured. "Nice to meet you." She didn't smile back, not yet, but her eyes warmed, just enough to change everything. The girl who wouldn't speak wasn't lost. She simply needed someone willing to learn her silence. The morning broke soft over the ranch, casting pale gold light across the fields as Elias stepped out onto the porch, stretching against the cool air. He had not slept well, thinking about the girl sleeping inside the small room at the end of the hall, the girl who had been sold like livestock and brought to his door with nothing but fear in her eyes. Her name was Lena, and though she made no sound, not even a whisper, she had a presence that filled the spaces between every heartbeat. Inside the house, Lena stirred awake, slowly blinking at the gentle glow pouring through the curtains. She sat up, clutching the blanket around her as if afraid it too might be taken from her at any moment. The silence around her was deep but not frightening like the silence of her old home. This silence felt safe, wrapped in warmth and the faint scent of coffee drifting from the kitchen. Elias kept his movements quiet as he set a second cup on the table, unsure if she would join him, unsure if she even trusted him after everything she had endured. He did not blame her if she did not trust anyone, not after a father who had chosen whiskey over the child he should have protected. He wondered how long she had lived in fear, how long she had gone unseen, unheard. Lena stepped lightly down the hall, bare feet brushing the wooden floor. She appeared in the doorway, shoulders tense, eyes lowered as though expecting harshness. Elias looked up but did not move too quickly. He offered a small nod and pushed the second cup forward as gently as one might offer a frightened animal. She hesitated, then approached, slow like dawn rising. Her eyes flicked to his hands, to the cup, to the window, as if checking for danger in every direction. She sat. Elias watched her carefully, not with pity but with quiet respect. He had learned long ago that people broke in different ways. Some shattered loud and sudden, others split silently with cracks too thin to see. He suspected Lena was the latter, broken not by violence but by years of being ignored, dismissed, unseen. He wondered if she had ever known kindness that did not demand something in return. As they ate, Lena noticed the ranch cat weaving between the table legs, a scruffy striped creature with one torn ear. The cat brushed against her ankle and she froze, eyes wide. Elias thought she might pull away, but instead she leaned down slowly, hand trembling as she touched the soft fur. For the first time since she arrived, a faint, unmistakable brightness crossed her face, something close to a smile, something brave and fragile. Elias felt a shift inside him, a small warm ache. Maybe hope could grow here on this land, even for a girl who heard nothing but lived in a world full of sound she could not grasp. Maybe she would find her way in the stillness. Maybe she would learn that silence did not have to mean loneliness. And maybe, he thought as he watched her gently cradle the cat, nothing in her life was beyond saving, not anymore, not here. The morning sun rose gentle over the ranch, casting a warm gold light across the quiet fields and filling the sky with soft color. Clara stood on the porch, wrapped in a thin shawl, feeling the cool breeze drift over her skin. She watched the horses grazing, watched the dust float in the air, watched the world move slowly with a peace she had not felt in years. She could not hear the wind or the hooves or the morning calls of the birds, but she could feel the calm, and that was enough. Elias stepped out of the barn, wiping his hands on a cloth, and glanced toward her. His steps were slow, careful, respectful. He had grown used to her silence, and she had grown used to his presence. She did not fear him as she first had, and though she could not hear his voice, she learned to read the way he moved, the way his eyes softened, the way his shoulders relaxed around her. They greeted each other in quiet gestures, and for Clara that was its own kind of language. Today Elias carried a small wooden box. He placed it gently on the porch rail and opened it. Inside were simple tools, brushes, paper, charcoal, pencils, things meant for drawing. He motioned for her to come closer. His meaning was clear. He knew she understood the world through sight, through touch, so he wanted to give her something that belonged to her, something that allowed her to speak without sound. Clara touched the charcoal stick carefully, as if it were made of glass. Then she touched the paper. She hesitated, trembling, unsure if she still remembered how to draw. She had once drawn flowers, animals, little shapes that made her mother smile before the world became dark and loud and frightening. Elias stepped back, giving her space, letting her breathe, letting her decide. Slowly her hand moved, the charcoal marked the page in soft lines, and then something inside her loosened, the lines became shapes and the shapes became something real. She drew the barn, the corral, the distant hills, then she drew Elias standing near the fence, a quiet figure who watched without demanding anything of her. She surprised herself with how steady her hand was. Elias noticed the picture, but he did not speak or react too strongly. He simply nodded once with a softness that said he understood what it meant. He respected the quiet space she lived in. The drawing became the first bridge between them, a step into trust, into life again. Later he brought her to the fields, showing her how to help with small tasks, feeding the chickens, watering the garden, guiding the horses with gentle hands. She watched his movements and copied them, learning not through sound but through motion. She found comfort in the routine, in the earth, in the warmth of sunlight on her skin. For the first time in so long, Clara felt a thread of hope, thin but real. She was not healed, not yet, but she was no longer surviving. She was beginning to live again, and Elias, standing beside her, felt something shift in his own heart, a quiet promise growing between them, even if neither fully understood it yet. The storm clouds drifted over the lonely stretch of desert as night settled softly around the ranch, and the lamps inside the small house flickered with a tired glow. The wind carried the smell of distant rain and the sound of coyotes calling from the shadowed hills beyond the barn. The earth lay quiet and the sky stretched out like a wide dark sea, and in that silence the girl moved slowly through the yard, her bare feet brushing against the dry soil. She had been planning for hours inside her room, tracing every path she could imagine, trying to understand the safest way to slip away from the ranch without waking the man who had taken her. In her thoughts circled like frightened birds the memories of her father, the shouting, the bottles, the pain that followed her every step haunted her stubbornly. She had lived under fear for so long that the idea of freedom felt like thin mist, something she could touch for a moment before losing her grip again. But she had also begun to realize something else, a truth that frightened her just as much. She was growing attached to the ranch, to the animals, to the quiet, to the man who watched her with patient eyes and steady hands, the same man who bought her not to own her but to save her. And this new feeling, this strange safety, made her chest tighten, because she did not know if she deserved it or if she knew how to accept it. She stepped quietly through the yard, her small bundle of belongings clutched close to her chest. Her heart pounded hard as she passed the barn door, and she paused, listening for any sign that he had heard her. But the house remained still, and the only sound was the low rumble of thunder in the far distance. A faint moonlight fell over the dusty path leading away from the ranch, and she followed it with slow, careful steps, forcing herself not to look back. Every part of her wanted to keep walking, to leave before she became too attached, before she began to trust someone again. Trust had hurt her before, trust had left marks no one could see. But when she reached the old fence that marked the end of the ranch, she hesitated, gripping the top rail with trembling hands. The world beyond was wide and uncertain, and she knew too well how harsh it could be. She could barely communicate with strangers, and her silence often caused more trouble than any words could. Thunder rolled again, and a sudden flash of lightning lit the sky, revealing dark clouds racing toward her. The storm was coming fast, and the wind began to whip dust against her face. Still, she pushed one leg over the fence, struggling not to cry as she told herself she had no place here. She told herself he deserved someone braver, someone whole, someone who was not broken by years of fear and silence. But then she heard quick footsteps behind her, and she froze. The wind carried a familiar warmth as the rancher stepped into the dim light, breathless from running. His voice was soft, not angry, not commanding, just full of worry and something deeper, something she had not expected. He told her she did not have to run. He told her she was safe. He told her she had a home. Her hands shook as she turned slowly toward him, the storm closing in around them, the night holding its breath as she stood on the fence, trying to choose between the fear she knew and the hope she barely dared to trust. The storm rolled away by morning, leaving the ranch washed in silver light and long shadows across the yard. Elena woke to the soft creak of the cabin walls and the quiet hush of wind weaving through the grass. She sat up slowly, blinking against the pale brightness. Her world had always been shaped by silence, but something about today felt different, quieter in a way she did not understand. Jonas stepped inside, carrying a small tray with warm bread and broth. He gave her a gentle nod, then set it near the bed. His movements were always slow and open, so she could read them with ease. No sudden gestures, no surprises. He had learned quickly how to speak in a language she could follow, and Elena was grateful for it. She touched her bandaged ear gently, pain flaring. For an instant she watched Jonas moving about the room, and for a moment she wondered if he knew how much she trusted him, more than anyone she could remember, though her memories still felt scattered and incomplete, like pages torn from a book and tossed in the wind. He sat on the chair beside her, picking up the small slate and chalk they used to speak with. He wrote, "How do you feel?" Elena stared at the words, trying to form an answer in her mind. She took the chalk slowly and wrote, "Better but different." She did not know how else to explain it. The silence had weighed today, heavier than before, pressing at the edges of her thoughts. Jonas studied her face, then sighed. He reached into his coat and produced a small folded paper. One of the ranch hands found this near the creek, he said with slow deliberate mouth movements. She watched the shape of every syllable. He placed the paper in her hand. She unfolded it. It was worn, smudged from water and dirt, but she recognized the shaky lines. She had written this. It was her handwriting, though she could not remember doing it. The message was simple: find the ranch, find safety, someone is coming. Her breath caught. She did not remember writing it, yet she knew it was true. Her heart beat faster. She clutched the paper, looking up at Jonas, fear flickering in her eyes. Jonas leaned forward, steadying her with a calm hand. He mouthed slowly, you are safe here, Elena. No one will harm you, not while I breathe. His promise settled over her like a blanket, warm and solid. Something deep within her stirred a faint tremor, something like a voice reaching through the silence. She closed her eyes, focusing on the distant hum inside her mind. It was faint but real, like a soft vibration under her skin. When she opened her eyes, she saw Jonas watching her carefully. She lifted the chalk again and wrote, I think I heard something. Jonas froze, surprise flickering across his face, then slowly hope rose in his eyes, bright and steady. He took her hand in both of his and mouthed, we will find your voice, Elena, whatever it takes. And she believed him more than she trusted the silence that had ruled her world for so long. The sun slid low across the canyon, painting the rocks in shades of gold and fire as Luke rode with Mara resting safely in front of him, her small fingers gripping his coat. Though she could not hear the wind, she felt the motion, the rhythm, the steady beat of the horse beneath them. It soothed her, and yet he sensed a trembling in her shoulders, a worry she could not voice but that lived sharp in her chest. They reached the ridge where the land opened wide toward the valley, the ranch, the river, and beyond that the town, where whispers traveled faster than wagons and judgment came colder than winter. Luke slowed the horse, letting the quiet settle around them. Though Mara did not hear the silence, she felt it wrapping around her like a thin, fragile cloth. Luke climbed down, then helped her to the ground. Her eyes lifted to his, searching for something steady. He gave her a nod, firm, calm, certain that she was safe, that he would not leave her. Her hand rose to touch his cheek, asking silently what words could not shape. He brushed a strand of hair from her face, and she leaned into the touch, drawing breath as if gathering courage for what waited in the valley. They walked to the canyon edge, the wind tugging at their clothes. Mara looked down at the wide earth below, then back at Luke. He understood. She feared being returned to the life she came from, a life where hands were cruel and footsteps meant danger. She feared being unwanted, unloved, unseen. He knelt beside her, taking her hand and letting her feel the strength in his grip, not force but promise. He guided her hand to his chest, letting her feel the heartbeat steady as a drumbeat echoing across the canyon. Her eyes softened to fear, easing for a moment as she placed her palm flat, listening with her skin instead of ears. She mouthed a question. He answered with a slow shake of his head, then pointed to the horizon, to the home waiting for her, not the one she fled, but the one he wished to give her. Mara touched the small notebook tied inside her dress, the one he had given her, filled with simple drawings he made to help her understand the world around her: a house, a horse, a river, a warm fire. A hand held in another. She opened it to the last page, where he had drawn two small figures standing side by side. She traced the lines with her fingertip, then looked up at him, wonder in her eyes, hope flickering like the first spark of light before dawn. Luke saw her question, her fear, her longing, and he felt something shift inside him, deep and certain. He reached out and brushed his thumb beneath her eye, gentle, steady. She lifted her hand and placed it over his again, not asking him to stay, not asking him to promise, but trusting he already had. A hawk glided above them, its shadow sweeping over the rocks, and disappeared into the sky. Mara pointed at it, smiling, small, soft, pure. Luke nodded, understanding what she saw: freedom, wide sky, no chains, no fear, no cruel hands pulling her away. She picked up a small stone and set it on the ledge, then another, building a small stack, tiny but steady. She stepped back, looking at him, pride glowing on her face. He understood. She was telling him she wanted to build something of her own, something that would stand even when winds came and storms passed. He reached for her hand. She let him take it, their fingers weaving together easily, as if they had done it 1,000 times. They rode back toward the valley, the sky dimming, the first stars breaking through the fading light. Mara leaned against him, trusting his warmth, his strength, her fear easing into something gentler, something new. He held her a little closer, knowing that the path ahead would not be simple, but knowing too that he would walk it with her, step by step, breath by breath. Behind them, in the quiet of the canyon, the stack of stones stood under the rising moon, a silent promise, a beginning not yet spoken but already true in their hearts. The sun dipped low over the horizon, casting long shadows across the quiet ranch, the fields bathed in warm golden light. Clara moved through the garden, her fingers brushing against the leaves and the soft petals of the wildflowers she had planted. Luke worked nearby, repairing the fence, his hands steady and skilled, each movement deliberate and careful, yet there was an ease between them, a quiet companionship that had grown with time and shared effort. Clara paused, watching Luke as he lifted a plank into place, his muscles flexing in the fading light. She felt a strange warmth in her chest, a fluttering that she could not quite name yet. It was accompanied by comfort, a sense of safety, and the knowledge that here with him she could breathe freely for the first time in her life. Their eyes met and held a moment longer than necessary, a silent conversation passing between them filled with trust, understanding, and something deeper. The barn door creaked in the distance and Luke glanced over, a small smile tugging at his lips. "Good work, Clara," he said softly, his voice carrying over the field, yet gentle and warm. She smiled back, her heart lifting at the sound, her own voice finding its way to words she had not yet dared to speak. "You taught me so much," he said, motioning toward the garden and the fence. The work that had occupied their days and created a rhythm of shared purpose each day together had strengthened not only the ranch but the connection between them. As the light faded further, the first stars appearing in the darkening sky, Clara and Luke carried tools back to the shed. Their movements synchronized, their steps light and careful. Each word exchanged was soft and intentional, each glance a conversation, all unspoken yet deeply felt. The quiet moments between them had become as significant as any action taken in the barn or the fields. They shared a meal later, the fire crackling gently, their hands brushing as they passed dishes, the simple intimacy filling the air with warmth. The night deepened and the wind carried the scent of dry earth and cool grass across the ranch. Clara found herself seated beside Luke on the porch, watching the stars appear one by one. She leaned slightly closer, the comfort of his presence steady and reassuring. The day had been long and filled with work, yet the sense of shared purpose and companionship had made each moment meaningful. Their laughter had mingled with the evening breeze, their conversations soft and deliberate, exploring thoughts, dreams, and small confessions. Luke reached over, adjusting the blanket around their shoulders, the gesture small yet filled with care. Clara's heart swelled at the touch, the recognition of his thoughtfulness and the subtle expressions of affection that had become more frequent with each passing day. The bond between them had shifted imperceptibly from necessity and duty to something more tender and profound, a connection that could not be ignored. As the fire dimmed and the cool night settled around them, Clara and Luke remained on the porch, silently observing the stars and feeling the quiet strength of one another. They had begun to understand that love could grow from trust, companionship, shared hardship, and the gentle unfolding of days spent together. In the hush of the night, the ranch seemed to breathe around them, the world quiet and still, and their hearts beginning to recognize the feelings that had taken root in the fertile soil of shared experience. The ranch rested beneath the night sky, yet within it a warmth persisted, a promise unspoken yet understood. The young woman who had once been alone and the man who had brought her into his care now found themselves bound by more than circumstance, by respect, affection, and the stirrings of a love neither had anticipated but both were beginning to embrace. The evening settled over the ranch, bringing with it a quiet calm that contrasted sharply with the busyness of the day. Clara and Luke sat together on the porch, the last rays of sunlight casting warm hues across the fields. The air was soft and cool, carrying the scent of hay and wildflowers. Their hands rested near each other, and yet the space between them seemed charged with something unspoken. Clara watched Luke as he ran his fingers over the rough wood of the porch, the thoughtful expression on his face illuminated by the fading light. She felt her heart tighten, a mix of anticipation, fear, and hope building within her. Each moment spent together had drawn them closer, and yet neither had dared to speak the words that lingered in their hearts, the feelings that had grown quietly between them. Luke glanced up, catching Clara's gaze, a small smile forming at the corners of his lips. His eyes held a softness of vulnerability that he seldom showed to the world. Clara felt her pulse quicken and took a small breath. "Steady, Clara," he said, his voice low yet carrying a weight that drew her attention. "I need to tell you something." She leaned forward slightly, her hands folding in her lap, her eyes fixed on him, silently urging him to continue. He took a deep breath, his shoulders relaxing as if the act itself released some unseen tension. Clara listened intently, her heart beating rapidly, ready for whatever he would say. "I never expected this," he said. "I never expected to care so much, to feel this way about someone else, yet here I am looking at you and realizing that you are the most important part of my life." Luke paused, gathering his courage, the words difficult yet necessary. He reached out, slowly brushing a loose strand of hair from her face, his fingers gentle, warm, and reassuring. Clara felt a swell of emotion rising inside her, her eyes glistening as she absorbed the confession. She had suspected the truth for some time, yet hearing it spoken aloud made her heart soar and tremble at the same time. "I feel the same," she said, her voice soft yet certain. "I never expected to care for anyone like this, and yet I can't imagine not being with you." The words hung in the air, heavy with meaning and release, a culmination of days, weeks, and months spent building trust and understanding. Luke smiled fully now, the tension leaving his body, the relief evident in his posture. He took her hand, fully intertwining their fingers, the gesture simple yet filled with promise and commitment. Their hearts seemed to align in that quiet moment, the air around them charged with the affirmation of shared feelings that had taken root and flourished in the sanctuary of the ranch. The night deepened, stars appearing one by one overhead, and Clara leaned into Luke, feeling the warmth of his presence and the strength of his affection. The confessions made the bond between them undeniable, each word spoken a seed of certainty in the soil of their growing love. They spoke softly thereafter, sharing small thoughts, dreams, hopes, and fears, allowing the quiet intimacy to deepen and solidify the connection that had been developing over countless shared moments. The ranch rested in peaceful darkness, the sounds of crickets and the distant hoot of an owl providing a backdrop to the profound transformation of hearts. Two lives had intersected through circumstance, yet through courage, trust, and care, love had emerged, a love now spoken aloud and recognized, cherished, and embraced in the quiet sanctuary of the prairie night. The morning sun rose over the ranch, casting golden light across the fields and the wooden fences. Clara and Luke walked side by side, their footsteps soft on the dirt path. The air was filled with the scent of fresh grass, wildflowers, and the faint smoke from the morning fire. Their hearts were light and their spirits steady, each having endured trials and now embracing the calm certainty of being together. Clara moved to the garden, her hands brushing over the leaves and the soft petals of the flowers she had planted. Luke carried tools toward the barn, pausing occasionally to adjust a fence post or tie a loose rope. Each action was deliberate, steady, and meaningful, yet beneath the work ran the quiet satisfaction of shared life and mutual understanding. They spoke little, letting the rhythm of their chores and the gentle breeze carry their thoughts and unspoken feelings. At noon, they rested on the porch, sipping water and watching the horizon, the hills glowing in the sunlight. Clara leaned slightly against Luke, the warmth of his shoulder comforting and familiar. Her heart swelled with gratitude for the quiet drifter who had saved her and for the life they had created together, a life defined by choice, trust, and affection rather than fear and obligation. The day passed in steady routine tasks, feeding animals, repairing fences, collecting firewood, and tending to the small comforts that made the cabin a home. Each act small yet significant, each gesture a reflection of care and commitment. The bond between them deepened with every shared moment, every glance, every laugh, and every quiet conversation under the vast skies of Red Mesa. As evening fell, the sky painted in shades of pink and purple. Clara and Luke sat close together on the porch, the fire flickering softly in the hearth behind them. The air was cool and fragrant, carrying the scent of earth and flowers. Their hands brushed and then held firmly, a silent affirmation of the love that had grown steadily through hardship, courage, and patience. They spoke softly of dreams, hopes, and plans, their words mingling with the night sounds and the whisper of wind through the trees. The stars emerged one by one, illuminating the ranch and surrounding hills. Clara rested her head against Luke's shoulder, feeling the steady warmth and strength of his presence. The trials of the past weeks and months had forged a connection deeper than circumstance, deeper than gratitude, a connection that spoke of shared courage, understanding, and enduring affection. Night fell fully and the ranch settled into quiet. Clara and Luke remained on the porch, watching the flickering light of the fire and the soft glow of the stars. They had chosen each other fully, freely, and now moved forward hand in hand, hearts aligned, ready to face whatever the future held together. The love that had begun in uncertainty and danger had grown strong, steady, and unwavering, a foundation for the life they would build side by side. The horizon stretched endlessly before them, the fields bathed in moonlight, the sounds of night soft and peaceful. Clara and Luke felt a deep sense of contentment and anticipation. Their lives intertwined, their hearts committed, their love affirmed, and their spirits resilient. They embraced the dawn of every new day together in the quiet beauty of Red Mesa, confident, courageous, and in love.